Good evening and welcome back to Sunday Evening Devotions. Our topic tonight is the civil magistrate or civil rulers. Now there's been debate within the Christian church as to whether believers, Christians, should hold office in the government. As we think about the Bible's teaching and examples, we can certainly note that there are a number of examples of believers, particularly in the Old Testament, who held office in governments besides the kings of Israel. Joseph in Egypt, Nehemiah, Daniel are three that immediately come to mind. In the New Testament, there are others by inference that seem to hold government office as well. And so the writers of the Westminster Confession were the opinion that indeed it is proper and right for Christians on certain occasions to hold public office or government office. Now, this is derived basically from the principle that government itself, civil government, is established by God, Romans chapter 13, and that God rules over and appoints judges and kings, Proverbs chapter 8. And so civil authority then, like all human authority, is derivative. It comes from God. Its authority is based on His overarching and sovereign authority. Now we often think of, in human relations, the spheres of human authority as three: the family, the church, and the state. And they overlap at certain points. They are responsible to each other in certain ways, and yet no one sphere is to infringe upon the particular domain or rule of any other sphere. So families are to rule over themselves and their children, yet under the law, and in regards to the church. And the church speaks prophetically to the state, and as well to the family, upholding God's law, and offers salvation through faith in Jesus Christ. And the government is to protect both family and church, but the government, as particularly as written in the Westminster Confession, is not to infringe upon the church and ruling over it in terms of faith and practice. Now the state should always protect the rights of its citizens, and so the church, being part of human society, is due the protection that the state should afford it, and protecting it as an institution, but it should not prefer one particular Christian denomination over another. The civil government, as it protects the rights of its citizens, should protect them from indignity, abuse, violence, or injury, but being careful not to do it from any pretense of religious test or someone's supposed unfaithfulness. In other words, the state is to be neutral in these things, upholding righteousness. And of course, that's defined by God, by God's law. The church should, again, speak prophetically to the state on these issues. Now, we think then of how then the church then functions, and the fact that religious people, particularly believers, then should act out of that religious principle and conviction in fulfilling their duties in those government offices. Now this particular section of the Westminster Confession on chapter 23 was rewritten in 1788 from the original, and when it was adopted by the American Presbyterian Church, and it reflects a more American separation of church and civil government as differentiated from Europe. So there are opinions as to how we're to apply these things, but the point of it is, and the bottom line is that, well, the church preaches the gospel. It is a spiritual enterprise. It is the kingdom of God on earth. It speaks prophetically to the state as well as to all men, proclaiming God's salvation by grace through faith in Jesus Christ. And it's good news. Good night.